Welcome and hello from Alex, with a story from entitled Parents, where a service dog handler encounters an entitled mom who disregards disability and basic courtesy. Coming up next is a story from Playful Mountain Fox. Entitled Mom told me disabled people shouldn't go in public as we don't want to be stared at. First time posting and on mobile, sorry for any mistakes lol. Needed context. I, female 23, am a service dog handler to a red Tri-Aussie. She's a very pretty dog and gains us a lot of attention, so I am very used to gently educating about why you shouldn't interrupt or distract service dogs. Typically just a hey, please don't distract service dogs, or even telling my dog, but more so just saying out loud, ignore it does the trick. I have a heart condition, POTS for those that know it, that causes me to faint, and she alerts prior to fainting so that I don't fall and get injured or at worst, die. This day, while walking around, I hear cooing and cawing from somewhere nearby, loud enough to be from a good distance, and clearly an adult voice. Out of curiosity, I look around and see a woman, not much older than myself, with a small child no older than 3 in a shopping cart, pointing out my dog. I smiled at them, seeing the kid and not minding the lady at that point. Usually parents point us out to teach their kids about service dogs or to call my dog pretty. I did need to go down the aisle they were in, but figured it wouldn't be an issue. As soon as I walked closer, the mom started raising her voice while still baby talking her kid, saying things like, "Ooh, look at the puppy coming closer. And isn't that puppy so cute?" Nothing bad, but she was incredibly loud for being right next to me at this point, and her kid wasn't looking. This displeased the mom, so she started to move her cart to force her kid to look at my dog, and I spoke up because she was now blocking where I was trying to go. "Please don't block my path, I am just trying to shop like anyone else." This lady was not happy with being told this. Without skipping a beat, her face had turned a deep red and she was screaming at the top of her lungs at me in the store. "I'm sorry, I just wanted my kid to admire the pretty puppy, and I'll admit, this frazzled me. I wasn't expecting her to turn so angry so quickly, especially since I thought I had been relatively nice in explaining why I didn't want her to move her cart just for her kid to see my dog. I responded along the lines of, "You're more than allowed to look, just please don't block us from shopping." And it's not good to teach kids to point and yell at service dogs. It can distract them from their jobs. If she misses an alert, I could get really hurt. And I get yet another mind-blowing response, the reason I am making this post. This lady screamed back, now with people watching because we were quite close to the front of the store. "We have eyes. My daughter and I are allowed to look at your dog. If you disabled people are so bothered by being stared at, don't come out in public." I was so shocked at first, I didn't even know how to respond. I eventually just stared at her for a second, silently, before saying, "Wow, I am so glad people like you are raising kids." Because remember, this happened in front of her small child. I honestly wanted to avoid any more confrontation, so I turned to rush to check out while the mom was busy screaming something else that I ignored. Luckily, she didn't follow and I shared looks of WTF even was that with other people who had seen her outburst. Luckily, my dog was unfazed. I gave her extra treats once we left the store, just to reward her for being such a good girl. That woman's behavior was outrageous. It's mind-boggling how someone could be so inconsiderate. Clearly, she doesn't understand the importance of service dogs, and her yelling was not only disrespectful but potentially dangerous for Opie. Honestly, it's hard to say what could have prevented this entirely. Some people are just wired to be self-absorbed and oblivious. Opie handled it well though. Staying calm and explaining the situation is always the best first step, but some people just can't be reasoned with. Good on Opie for getting out of there and for giving her dog some well-deserved treats. Coming up next is a story from Jetter 998. Did I handle Easter right? I feel so guilty. To give some context, on Christmas, there was an issue with my uncle teasing and making fun of me and my husband about moving to a different state when we bought our first house. The banter crossed a line into a belligerent argument and it became really uncomfortable. X state has more traffic, it's smelly and ugly. You'll miss Y state right away. My cousin and my mom even chimed in with the pile on about how the state we were moving to is inferior. My parents gave us a ride home, and when I complained about it to them, they at first were like, "You know your uncle, he likes to tease," and then they began to sympathize until I called my mom out for joining in on the bullying. Then my dad got angry and began berating us and saying they had nothing to do with it, etc., and that I brought this up on Christmas and ruined Christmas. Needless to say, it was an awkward ride home. Flash forward 3 months, I am the type to kinda live and let live, especially 3 months after something happened, but my husband is not. We knew a few weeks before Easter that we would be having Easter with that side of the family, and my husband was not happy and kept saying he was dreading it. My take on it is that family can be difficult and obnoxious, but you love them and suck it up for a few holidays a year. Thursday, I ended up talking to my parents because my husband's discomfort was apparent. They empathized and then offered to talk to my uncle for me. I decided to handle it on my own by approaching my aunt, his wife, since she is a bit more reasonable. She coldly said she is sorry I felt this way, but since she was not the perpetrator, she does not understand why I am coming to her. So then I contacted my uncle to explain how we felt, who took 48 hours to respond and ended up saying it was just a joke. At this point, we had told my parents that we would be getting there, later than they had asked for instead of 2 because my husband was so upset. We also told them we would not be coming for Easter because of the hostile environment. The original plan was we were celebrating a mini Easter with my brother on Saturday, sleeping over and having Easter breakfast and then dinner with the dreaded uncle and his family. After my brother left Saturday evening, I told my parents we were leaving too. My mom started to cry because she thought we were staying to have breakfast. I sent my husband out to go get the car and calmly explained that it has been a difficult time emotionally, and my father got angry and said it has been a difficult time for them because my mom had surgery 2 weeks ago and that I am being selfish. I became uncomfortable, and then he told me, in kind of a threatening voice, I had crossed a line with refusing to spend time with them on a major holiday. I ended up going out to the car and talking to my husband for a few hours to decide what to do. My husband is fuming and saying my father is acting out of line and causing me duress. We ended up having a huge argument because I told my husband about all the guilt I have and that I don't want to speak up or cause drama on a major holiday, just like I did on Christmas. He said they were the ones causing issues, not me, for standing up for us. We decided to create a united front and stay over for Easter breakfast, but my husband very clearly did not want to be there. My father and husband were not talking to each other. For further context, there is a long history of my husband butting heads with my family. We had a lot of issues during wedding planning and COVID wedding rescheduling from 2019 to 2022. My parents had said multiple things that made my husband and I feel ostracized and like we are causing problems. One example, in 2019, my mom did not understand why my husband had 2 Passover setters. He is Jewish, while they only celebrate Easter once. She jokingly said, "What are you, turning into Mrs. Leibovitz?" Which is not my husband's last name, but I guess was the most stereotypical Jewish name she could think of. This caused a huge blow-up fight and a rift between me and my parents. They also kept during the wedding planning saying Jeter is the bride, so she gets final say with planning, and kept implying I was more important than my then fiancé. Another more recent issue, Christmas 2022, my brother and sister-in-law were sick with a stomach bug. A few days later, my mom scheduled makeup Christmas with them, but my husband thought they might still be contagious, so we declined the invitation. My mom called me upset and said I ruined Christmas. On my parents' side, they have never been huge fans of my husband's because he has a temper and has a tendency of letting things get to him and yelling when we have an argument. My parents have always felt that his temper is a problem. They have been there when he made me cry during particularly bad arguments, and that he tends to stir the shit. My mom tries really hard to keep the peace, i.e. keep the status quo, while my dad does not hide that he feels my husband is disrespectful and has even said so to his face. I have felt caught in the middle for 5+ years, and even after years of therapy, couples therapy, journaling, and trying to work on myself, my instinct is to not cause drama with my family. I felt so guilty for leaving Easter after breakfast with less than 24 hours notice of our plans, and my husband feels I don't have his back. That whole situation sounds exhausting. It's clear Opie's family can be very difficult. Her uncle's dismissive joke and then her dad's guilt trip about her mom's surgery are both way out of line. Honestly, I don't think Opie could have prevented this entirely. Her family seems to have a pattern of dismissive behavior and emotional manipulation. Opie trying to address the Christmas incident beforehand shows she was trying to avoid problems, and it wasn't her fault things escalated. Opie absolutely handled it right by leaving. Her parents and uncle need to learn that their actions have consequences. Hopefully this will be a wake-up call for them. Opie deserves to be treated with respect, and it sounds like her husband is a good support system for her. Coming up next is a story from nxicxi, and if you like the video so far, don't forget to like the video. It only takes a second and helps me out a lot. Entitled Karen Grandma was rude to my 9-year-old sister. Not a parent, but this was something rude that happened. This happened in a face painting line at an event at the park. My 9-year-old sister and some other girls were waiting patiently in line for a long time, and when they were finally at the front, the face painter let the girl behind them all go before the 3 of them. She claimed the line started there, but they were waiting in line the whole time, and she clearly saw them there because she was standing right next to her. Before this though, there were kids standing at the same place they were in line at the front and she let them go. Just suddenly she decided that the line started behind them. The little girl's grandma argued with me so that they could go first. I said they've been waiting in time the whole time, and she said so has she, and just put her on the chair. We were waiting in line in front of them the whole time since the back of the line, so clearly she knew that we should have gone before them. I don't know why they both did this, since it was clearly unfair and might have been racially motivated, since the all girls she cut were Asian and the little girl who she let go first was white. It was super frustrating and made them all sad. That sounds infuriating. This grandma's behavior was totally out of line. It's awful that she would try to justify skipping the line, especially in front of a group of kids, and bringing race into it makes it even worse. There's no excuse for the face painter either. They should know better than to play favorites. Honestly, it's tough to say what could have prevented this. Some people are just determined to get their way, no matter how unfair it is. You did the right thing by speaking up for your sister, though. It's important to stand up to bullies, even grown-up ones pretending to be nice grandmas. Coming up next is a story from ObviousTone9493. My father thinks I should do everything for him. I, 25 female, moved back home a while ago because of some issues I was dealing with, but being back in my family home has been a nightmare. My father was the main reason I left the house 8 years ago. I kept minimal contact after a while, and I really thought he had turned a new leaf and changed. I thought everything was going to be okay. I have to bring him his tea every 2/3 hours, pick up his dirty plates and cups from the basement, bring him his snacks, his meals, his juice, his medication, anything you can name. When I bring him his food, he complains and says I gave him too much. Why would I do that? I am starting to get very overwhelmed and stressed out, as well as feeling sad for myself every day. I also cook and clean for him and the rest of my family. When he calls me or tells me to do something, he repeats that same thing about 3/4 times, and it really gets on my nerves. My dad is constantly asking for money 24/7 because he claims he is broke. I can't go anywhere past midnight. If I leave at any time of day, it's followed up by, "Where are you going? Why are you going outside? What is there for you to do out there? Come back early so you can help me." I am tired and exhausted. My sister recently left, and all he can do is badmouth her, and has stated that if she does not come to see her father, she will burn in hell. I am planning to leave after this in less than a week to a relative's house. My dad installed cameras in the house as well, and checks them religiously to see what time we leave, what time we arrive, and I have a lot of items to transport, and I am worried what he's going to think or do if he sees me. Also, I need to mention that if I say no or I don't agree with what he is saying, I am quote-unquote disrespecting my father and I should get out of his face. I had to take out my piercings because of him. Couldn't have braids in for long. He says they're fine. But whenever he sees me with them, he tells me over and over again to take them out, and that it looks ugly. I try to stick up for myself as best I can, but he's conditioned me to believe that I am the one who should act like a second parent, and bow down to him and be grateful. I've been losing weight, and he always watches me eat my food or else me and him will quote-unquote fight. Please excuse my grammar, but thank you for taking the time to read. That sounds like a truly awful situation. Opie's dad's behavior is outrageous. It's incredible that he expects her to act like his personal servant, especially after she already left the house because of him once. The constant nagging, money demands, and controlling behavior are way out of line. Honestly, it's hard to see how Opie could have prevented this entirely. It seems like her dad is manipulative and controlling. Her decision to leave to a relative's house sounds like the right move. No one should have to put up with that kind of treatment, especially from their own father. Good on Opie for getting out of there. Hopefully she has a safe and supportive environment at her relative's place. That wraps up r/EntitledParents. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to visit my Spotify channel. Link is in the description, so you can listen to the best Reddit story while being outside, and remember to hit that subscribe button.